So I'm out here in these streets. Your brother Cosmo, salute to you. You remember, you look up, you get up, and you don't ever give up.
You don't want to be so compliant. Right. So when do I fight them? When do I give a little resistance? When do you...
My question to you, just something for you to think about. At what point should they have stood up?
So when do I fight them? When do I give a little resistance? When do you...
Isn't that eerie? That Jimmy says, when do I fight the cops? When do we give a little resistance? Vigland decided that it was appropriate. I'm not going to...
So when she did this, I called it out. And many times I've pleaded with folks on the left about the importance of accuracy. And this is a prime example of why I keep saying that. I keep telling these people that you've got to be accurate in what you're reporting. The details matter, especially when you spend a lot of time calling out, mostly rightfully so, dishonesty in right-wing media. If you're going to be going out there and exposing the right-wing media for when they're lying and misleading people, as you should, and many of you do good jobs at doing so, not all the time, but I've seen a lot of good reporting exposing that. But if you're going to go out there and do that, when you make claims, they need to be solid. You can't go looking at screenshots like this and because of one guy watching a show, make a point that the show inspired that guy. And then when challenged on it, double down and like, oh, no, Nazis, blah, blah, blah. That's not how this works. And then the folks who like TYT and Majority Report, hearing them make these weak arguments, you're not helping your case by staying silent and allowing this kind of garbage. All you're doing is giving ammo to dishonest actors on the right to go after you guys. And since they have a much more powerful propaganda machine than you do, they'll actually be able to utilize this nonsense to suck people over to their side, but you guys won't be able to do the same thing.
Slide, and that's why it was brought up by me on that episode of Culture War, and I completely annihilated Emma Vigland on that point. I completely showed her for the hypocrite that she is, and I didn't expect it to go further than this. I didn't expect it to be addressed by TYT, but since they have addressed it, since they've continued to downplay it, since they've continued to lie about it, I've decided I have all the evidence, I have all the screenshots, I have all the videos, I have everything close to the 7-year anniversary, and I'm going to drop it all in this video for you guys to see, so it's undeniable. You want to lie? You want to pretend that this was no big deal? You want to pretend that this wasn't direct inspiration? I'm going to rub your face against it. You want to say that Tim's screenshots or screenshots of one episode...
So I want to make something very, very clear. Actual Justice Warrior has made some good videos, but he is afraid to address someone like myself who is not part of this dishonest tribal warfare, right? It's very easy for the left-wing media folks to call out the right-wing because they do a lot of garbage, right? And vice versa. But I don't play the games that people like Actual Justice Warrior and TYT and Jimmy Dore and all of these dishonest actors. I don't play those games, and I'm loyal to no one, right? 200 of Actual Justice Warrior's fans requested that he bring me on. His response is to completely ignore it, right? Because he doesn't want someone on his platform that is outside the box. Right? He wants to bring on certain left-wingers because he knows certain talking points that he can go and play around with or whatever. And he knows that ultimately they're in the same business as him. So you have someone like Anna who goes on Ben Shapiro's show and she does the business thing, right? Because she's looking to grow her audience as opposed to really being about the truth. However, as someone who's not in a tribe, even though I may disagree with a lot of things that this guy does, he definitely has some dishonest takes in his videos. He definitely has misleading videos for sure. But this is absolutely golden, and it's not because he's going after somebody I hate. No, he brings the facts. And put next to the nonsense that Emma Vigland was talking about, he absolutely decimates them. I deal with facts, right? I don't care about Actual Justice Warrior. I don't care about Majority Report. I don't care about TIT. I don't care about any of this high school, online, American propaganda media. I'm not in that business. I'm not here looking for friends. I'm not here to validate people. What I care about is the truth. And the truth of the matter is, Actual Justice Warrior decimates TYT, Jimmy Dore, another fraud and clown, and I think You guys will enjoy this.
What I'm going to play for you.
One of the things that triggered Tim very obviously is when Emma said, sorry, Tim, your program appeals to Nazis. And he lost his mind. He was like, how dare you say that? And then he brought TYT into the equation and said TYT was something that one of the shooters at one point back in the day watched and then went out and said, I'm now going to go commit a mass shooting because I'm the one to stop this.
So this is Brett Ehrlich right here. And Brett Ehrlich is an absolute coward. First of all, he attributes quotes to Tim Pool that I said. I said those things. And I didn't say one of the shooters vaguely this or that. I said Gavin Long was directly inspired by the Young Turks. Gavin Long made reaction videos to Young Turks videos about the police. There were calls for violence in those Young Turks videos. He had a specific affinity for protecting black women in his mind. And one of those videos in particular was a video where the Young Turks baselessly speculated that a woman slammed by the police was in fact slammed because she was a black woman, even though in reality she was a white woman. Do you think I would make a specific claim like that without the evidence? Do you think I don't have all of those videos at the ready to play for you right now? But Brett, our buddy, unwilling to confront the reality that this man was inspired directly by the Young Turks to kill police officers, vagues it up and says, oh, at one point in time, sometime in the past, this guy watched one of our videos. That's not the claim. That's Emma Vigland's claim, by the way, that this guy had screenshots from one episode of Timcast IRL. My claim was far more specific, and the reason I made this claim, it used to be at TYT, and Gavin Long, who was a Baton Rouge shooter, watched, reposted, and did reactions to Young Turks videos. A lot of them were straight misinformation. There was one in particular where they were going after a cop who slammed a woman, which by the way, the cop acted inappropriately, but they wildly speculated that it was a black woman. It turned out to be a white woman. And there was a call in the video of like, what do you do if you see a pregnant black woman being assaulted by a cop? Gavin Long said he's going to step up. You can watch these videos. They're available online. And he shot four cops.
I mean, that wasn't my comment.
No, hold on. I didn't say it was your commentary.
I didn't say, I don't know anything about that. I've never seen it. I'm in this left-wing media space, and I just conveniently don't really see the really bad stuff that happens over here. But I know a lot about the right-wing media. The right-wing media, oh my goodness. Wow. I lean left, absolutely. But I see very clearly a lot of the lies and misinformation from left-wing media. Just because I lean left doesn't mean I'm blind, right? I see a lot more of it coming from right-wing media, right? And I can more powerfully say that because unlike the folks at TYT that get exposed, I'm not part of a tribe, right? So if you call out left-wing media for doing some fraud and you bring the facts, I will amplify it and agree with you and say, yeah, that was bad what they did. I won't be, oh, well, I didn't know. Right.
On this guy's phone, big problem. I got to bring it up right here. But have you ever covered at all what inspired Gavin Long?
Because
he killed 4 police officers.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. That wasn't my coverage.
Is because Emma Vigland has no standards, as stated by me in the Culture War episode.
I don't lick Grundle. That's the answer. They know how to just really suck up to people.
Hold on, I want to respond because, yeah, I like 8 years ago when that shooting happened, there were a lot of people that were saying that TYT was responsible. Here's the thing. Shooters can be inspired by literally anything. The mere fact that someone says that they watch something does not by itself mean that the host of the show is responsible. There are additional aspects of critical thought that need to be considered. So first of all...
Really? Is he calling out Emma Vigland for making that vague connection between screenshots and... Wait, what does he say right now? They can be inspired by anything. I wonder I wonder if anyone would be inspired by the constant race baiting on TYT that I've seen for years.
Repeatedly said that political violence is not acceptable under any circumstances. That seems like a relevant thing to consider. All of the hosts at TYT constantly...
This is absolutely true. Someone who hates TYT will deny it, especially right-wing, but not only right-wing, maybe Blue MAGA might do it as well. They've absolutely, I've watched, the thing about it is I watch these guys' content. I watch a lot of right-wing media. I watch a lot of left-wing media. They have made several videos where in the videos they'll say, don't do violence or whatever. Especially Cenk has said that quite a few times. But two things can be true. They say that, but they also put out a lot of content that would easily lead someone to a position like this guy that killed those cops. Right? I actually know someone in my family who, I don't know this, that they definitely watch TYT, but clearly they've watched a lot of similar content. And I can't reach this guy. He's so brainwashed with this, racism is everywhere rhetoric, which you get from a program like TYT. You get that on MSNBC and other sort of left-leaning networks. He's so brainwashed by that he just sees racism everywhere. Now, in contrast, Mr. Actual Justice Warrior, one of the things that he does a lot, he loves to do racism apologia, right? So he spends a lot of time talking, basically downplaying racism. Racism is not really a thing, mocking the idea that there's racist cops and whatever. And then because TYT is so dishonest about it, they give Actual Justice Warrior perfect ammunition for him to sell to his audience the idea that all this stuff is nonsense. But here's the reality. Yes, of course you do have racist cops, obviously, right? Yes, in my view, there's systematic issues. Yes, a lot of the stuff that TYT talks about are genuine issues. But unfortunately, this is one of the things that you find in American media, right? The sensationalism, the greed, right, that you get from whether it's Actual Justice Warrior, TYT, or Jimmy Dore, or MSNBC, or Tim Pool. You always see this thing, this greed, right? So you have actual issues, actual systematic issues. You have actual racist cops. You have actual racist things happening. There's a lot of material for them to work with and report on and just stick to the facts. But it's not enough, right? So they have to go and manufacture it. So you have the real stuff happening that they do report on, and then you have other stuff that they'll manufacture. Oh, a white cop shoots a black person. Oh, it must be racism. This racist cop, the cops are racist. No evidence whatsoever that this is anything to do with racism, but they're gonna make it about racism, right? You have actual racism they report on, then you have stuff that's nothing to do with racism. They report on that as racism as well, right? To boost up the amount of volume of content, where they can make money from racism, right? That's a big industry. You make a lot of money from racism rhetoric. Oh, racist cops, racist this, whatever, right? And then on the right-wing media, you make a lot of money from downplaying it. Anytime that somebody says someone racist, oh, it's not actually true, right? And sometimes, of course, like I said, some of the stuff they report on is false. So that gives right-wing media easy wins when they can expose, they said this person was racist, but they're actually not racist, right? But then they will also do it because right-wing media, greedy, just like left-wing media, they will also go and try to downplay and give misinformation when it is really racism, right? Someone clearly is a white nationalist or whatever it is, or a Nazi, whatever it is. And, oh, they're not really a Nazi. Look, they have this picture with a BLM guy, and oh, look at the stuff. They posted something someday, whatever. Oh, it's probably a FBI, whatever, right? Greed. Partisan media, for-profit media is toxic in this country. It's not a left-wing problem. It's not a right-wing problem. It is a partisan media problem. It is a for-profit media problem. Right-wing media will definitely downplay actual racism, right? But left-wing media will also manufacture racism as well as report on actual racism. Right-wing media will downplay actual racism, right? And they will also expose left-wing media for manufacturing racism when they do it. This is a reality of American media.
Like, oh, wink and a nod to the audience, like, hey, maybe we get to do something extreme. No, it's unacceptable in all cases. Cenk has been very clear.
They literally do a wink and a nod when saying stuff that many would argue seems to be promoting violence. And by the way, the idea that they put out, so these are the people who know about stochastic terrorism. Right-wing media likes to deny stochastic terrorism is a real thing because it's inconvenient to their rhetoric, right? Left-wing media loves to talk about it, and they're very aware of it. So I know the guys at TYT, they know stochastic terrorism works, right? Stochastic terrorism, you put, sort of ideas out into the atmosphere. You don't directly call for violence, but you say certain things that when you're talking to a large enough audience, a percentage of the audience is going to take certain messages from that, which could lead to violence. And one of the tactics where you do that is you literally say the opposite. Let me give you an example. Anna has a lot of stuff to say about I don't know who she talking about. Anna's got a lot of stuff to say about Tim Pool, but you know what? She's in California, man, and I hear she likes to hang out a lot in East LA, and she likes to go to clubs and stuff like that, and I don't know, man. I really hope that no one gets upset with her and, catches her and like rapes her or something like that. I mean, that would not be the thing to do. You know, that is not. It's one thing for you to have a issue with someone, but to actually go out there and harm someone, like I'm totally against violence. So what I just did would be a very effective tactic if I had a large enough audience to try to get Anna hurt, right? And then if I get attacked, I can defend myself and say, no, I specifically said don't hurt her, right? That's how it works. That's the manipulation tactic, right? You literally say the opposite, but it's a psychological thing. Why would that work? Because the way it works is people filter information based on a lot of different reasons, right? If I have a large audience of millions and millions of people, there's a small fraction of the audience who really, really hate Anna, right? And them hearing me talk about how she hangs out in East LA and she goes out late at night, right? Just from me saying that, their minds are probably going to go to the idea of doing something to her. Like, oh, wow, she hangs out in East LA? Wow, maybe, you know, and maybe even if they don't think that idea yet, right? When I combine it with, I hope nobody goes and hurts her, their brain filters it in a different way because they hate her, they want to hurt her, they're unhinged, and then the thought of someone hurting her was just put in their minds. So you combine these two things. You're given details about where she is. You presented the idea of her being assaulted, right? These two things in the mind of the right person can combine to, oh, wow, I should try to go get her, right? So then when you go after that and you say, I hope no one hurts her, they're not really hearing that part, right? You've given them an idea. They're enraged with her, they're unhinged, and then you've put imagery in their brain of someone assaulting her and combine that with information about how they could do it in terms of saying where she is, right? And they will take that and run with it, right? You're saying don't do violence later is irrelevant. The emotion of this person who's enraged with Anna, they're not going to have a logical, oh yeah, that's a good, I shouldn't hurt her, that's right, that's a good point. No, you're dealing with somebody unhinged. You're feeding certain things to an unhinged person, and you know that they're going to just take the parts that you need, and then you protect yourself by saying the exact opposite, right? You can even say it in a way that it sounds even sarcastic. So technically you said it, but people, they know what you're saying, wink, wink. Right? So TYT knows about this. So the idea that they're going to sit here and present like, oh, we specifically say don't be violent, right? As a defense, knowing that many times they do use rhetoric that could definitely be, you know, get people amped up to actually do something. I don't know. It's kind of weak defense in my view. These are the same people who would recognize Trump saying peacefully on January 6th was irrelevant. This is how you know that they're being dishonest. They know, like I know, Trump saying peacefully, that was irrelevant, right? That's the games that people who like to manipulate play, right? To protect, covering his ass. So they know about that. But yet, what are they doing right now? Are they right now pointing out, oh, we said march peacefully. So when Trump does it, oh, he's just being sneaky. But when they talk about, oh, we say don't, you know, ignore all the sensational stuff that we do. Ignore the constant, you know, pounding of racist cop, everything racist. And what are we going to do? What are we going to do about it? And actually, watch what they actually say. Watch what Jimmy Dore actually says.
Literally has guns on his set.
So here you have John Irola looking very
Tim Pool has guns on his set. That's a strong argument they're making there. Sarcasm.
Call for violence. The Young Turks, oh, well, you know, this guy could be crazy and he could be inspired by anything, but it's not like TYT specifically is the thing that inspired him just because he watched one video at one point.
So if screen
knocks woman's teeth out in a legal arrest.
So this is a conservatives as responsible for his actions, and then they copyright claim the evidence in order to hide it. And I have proof of all of this. You guys have been awaiting this, so let's get into it.
Before they took down his YouTube channel, and in the immediate aftermath of his shooting, I went to his YouTube channel. Called himself Cosmo. He had a channel called I Am Cosmo. And he had a couple videos on there from the Young Turks. He had this one right here. It was with Cenk Uygur, Jimmy Dore, and some random woman. And it was called Cop Knocks Woman's Teeth Out an illegal arrest.
So this is a screenshot from Long's YouTube channel. As you can see, this specific Young Turks video is there. And remember, Gavin Long would do reaction videos to the Young Turks, like a video response person, but he would be affirming their positions. Now, in this video, again, they talk about the case that I referred to. A white girl got slammed by the police, broke her teeth. The police officer was fired because he was in the wrong.
But what's wrong with this guy? Is it like a power thing? Is it roid rage? Is it something like weirdly
I would
sexual?
guess the woman was not white who he did this to.
Oh,
I would guess. I'm not sure.
That's funny.
So in this video, not only do you see Jimmy Dore basically speculate that the woman was a black woman when, of course, she was in fact a white woman, and this not really go challenged by anybody in the group, but you also have him say, when do we fight the cops? When do I give a little bit of resistance?
That's the weirdest thing when you're around cops, right? You're like, oh, you want to be like compliant, right? But at the same time, if you don't know they're going to slam your head into a car or something, like you don't want to be so compliant.
Right.
Like, so when do I fight them? When do I give a little resistance? When do you?
Now you might be thinking, oh, Jimmy's just speaking out of turn or whatever. It's not like Gavin Long directly responded to this, but here's the thing. He directly responded to this. Again, this wasn't just watch some videos. This was reposted, did reactions to, and let's hear Gavin Long and tell me if something.
By the way, the Jimmy Dore stands are the most simple people ever. So you can already easily predict their response to this. That was a long time ago. That was when he was on TYT, and that's why he left, because they're garbage. Mind you, he's the one that's doing this. He's the one that's saying that on TYT. It's not TYT that was garbage in this particular moment. He was the one that was garbage. He was on TYT being garbage, right? But they would say, oh, you know, he left them, and now he's a much better person now. No. Jimmy Dore was a fraud then. He's a fraud now. In fact, he's even more of a fraud now. Right? But you got this contingent of supposed left-wingers online that will tell you otherwise. Now, it seems to me that all these people seem to be trying to build a YouTube career. Jimmy Dore gets a lot of views, so it would be good business sense to be friendly with him and to sort of pretend like you don't see how much of a fraud he is, and lie to your audience and gaslight them just so you can be in the Jimmy Dore clique, right? Because part of your brand is going after, you know, the fake progressives and TYT and Majority Report. So you burn those bridges. So who's going to boost your content? Who else is going to boost your content? You go after mainstream media. You go after the fake progressives. So Jimmy Dore is all you have. So you can't acknowledge anything that he does wrong. You got to just pretend not to see. You got to be very, very clear about the Democrats and what's wrong with the Democrats and what's wrong with TYT and what's wrong with Majority Report and Majority Report this and this and they're defending the squad, right? But when Jimmy Dore does stuff, let's talk about something else.
But it is in a way. So I just wanted to bring up when the Native Americans, when they were extincted by the same people that run this country, my question to you, just something for you.
The Native Americans were extincted. Grammar aside, I think the Native Americans are still around.
That's something for y'all to think about.
He's watching TYT, listening to Jimmy Dore the fraud, and now he sounds like Jimmy Dore the fraud.
Should the Native Americans who are extinct, at what point should they have stood up? That's every individual.
So I thought he misspoke when he said extincted, but now he says that they're extinct. I thought maybe he was trying to say genocided. But the fact that he said that they're extinct, so he's using another form of the same word, makes me think that he actually meant to say extinct. But again, this is a guy who shot and killed 4 cops.
So I'm out here in the streets. Your brother Cosmo, salute to you. You remember, you look up, you get up, and you don't ever give up.
You don't want to be so compliant.
Right.
Like, so when do I fight them? When do I give a little resistance? When do you?
My question to you, just something for you to think about. At what point should they have stood up?
So when do I fight them? When do I give a little resistance? When do you?
Isn't that eerie? That Jimmy says, when do I fight the cops? When do we give a little resistance? It doesn't go challenged by anybody on the Young Turks panel, on this specific panel. They're falsely reporting a story that particularly fed that niche of
That's one of the things that I've given him credit for lately in the last year, is the exact opposite of what he's pointing out. In this case, obviously they did not do it, but that's why I point out, and I've pointed out for months now, that TYT has been getting better. Still have a lot of room for improvement, for sure. There's still a left-wing propaganda network, for sure. But at least one unique thing about them is the pushback. I've never seen Actual Justice Warrior do this. I haven't seen Tim Pool. Not saying I haven't seen him do it at all, but in terms of generally speaking, you know, if I'm in right-wing media and I go on this guy's show, I can probably say a ton of things without him pushing back on them. Not saying he would literally not push back on anything, but likely he's just going to nod his head. I go on Tim Pool's channel, same thing. Now, if you're going in as the opposition, then there'll be a lot of pushback, right? But if you're on their tribe, then it's like not much to say. TYT, unlike a lot of these guys, left wing, right wing, I've seen many times people say nonsense on there. This is lately, not before. Lately, they say things that are wrong and get called out instantly. I've seen Anna do it to Cenk. I've seen Cenk do it to Anna. I've seen the other hosts do it as well. But the reason I can notice this while calling them out at the same time is because I'm not in a tribe. I'm not thinking emotionally, right? I'm thinking logically. I'm dealing with facts, right? So I don't have a hate for TYT, so I can't see anything positive about them. I can see both the trash that they produce as well as the good stuff that they do. Which is interesting because I have trouble doing the same thing when it comes to Donald Trump, but that's a topic for another video.
Police officers, we know what his answer was to that question. Again, direct inspiration from the Young Turks, and that's not the last of it. There's more reaction videos from Gavin Long. Now again, the Young Turks' response to this was not to acknowledge it. The Young Turks' response to this was not to address it head on, was not to condemn the violence that they inspired. Their response to this was to label it right-wing terror. So the title of this video is 3 More Cops Killed, anti-government, quote, sovereign citizen group, end quote, member responsible. And in the description it says, police were recently targeted and attacked again, this time in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. The attacker was a member of an anti-government sovereign citizen group and not affiliated with BLM.
The man who was killed in a shootout with police is believed to have been the only shooter. Many people were worried that there was an active shooter situation in the wake of that ambush. The police have come out and said that they do not believe that is the case. That person has been identified as an active member of the New Freedom Group, an anti-government group.
Hey guys, editing Sean here. So I went to look up at this New Freedom Group because oftentimes what I see whenever a black person who's motivated by anti-white sentiment commits an attack is label them as a sovereign citizen group, when in reality, in actuality, you look up these groups and you find that they're black nationalist groups, and sometimes they share some things in common with sovereign citizens, but in reality, they are not what you would think of when you think of a right-wing group. And guess what I found out? The New Freedom Group that they put forward, they can't confirm that it exists. Reuters and the
So I did some checking myself, and there's a lot of New Freedom Group posts, but it's all seems to be connected to some Alcoholics Anonymous group, is all that I could find. But I'm seeing that name referenced all over. I'm not saying it's not possible. It exists, but get a lot of noise that is unrelated to the topic. Here's the Reuters thing. So I guess this is what he's referencing. So actually Reuters is saying he was affiliated with an anti-government New Freedom Group. The Wall Street Journal reported, citing a person briefed on the investigation. So Southern Poverty Law didn't know anything about the group. So I mean, New Freedom Group could be some kind of underground thing. I don't know if this is necessarily that it's not real or not. I mean, if they're small enough, why would Southern Poverty Law know about them? Do they know about every single group like this? But if they really dug into this, they should be able to find somebody that knows about the group. In theory, I mean, if it's super underground, then you'd have to really, really dig, because maybe if it's secret and they don't want people to know, or inconclusive.
In order to make you think that this was a random, non-racially motivated, right-wing act of terror, just like all those other sovereign citizen attacks that are definitely white people. And that's why we didn't mention Gavin Long's race.
We've seen in the past, over the past 5 years plus, ambush-style attacks against police officers, one of the preferred tactics of these anti-government groups. They will call in for police to come to their home, EMS to come to their home, and then they will attack them. This appears to be one of those sorts of attacks.
So 2 days after the Young Turks inspires this person of sources, but specifically from the Young Turks, as I'm going to show you with this other reaction video.
There's no reason to arrest her. And she's not going anywhere. He already said there wasn't a crime that was committed, yet you are black, and I'm a little pissed off that you're not doing exactly what I said. So I'm going to hurt you. I'm going to brutalize you right now in public in front of a school. I don't give a fuck because I'm a cop, and that's why I became a cop, because I'm not a big thinker, and I like brutality.
What I can imagine goes through, I don't know what goes through his mind, but like they've got to think this through differently. Like if you don't think, like I got in hindsight, if she'd given her last name, we probably don't have the situation. But you have to recognize as a police officer, what's going to happen if she doesn't? What's going to happen when I touch her?
Okay, I'll go out on a limb on this one. I'll go out on a limb, and I'm gonna say, generally speaking, women.
Just to be clear, again, this guy makes reaction videos to TYT. Emma Vigland wanted to make a big deal about screenshots. This is way more than screenshots. This guy made several reaction videos to TYT. Here, Actual Justice Warrior is showing you the smoking gun. He says, I can't confirm because, and that's about being objectivity, right? I'm loving this. expose on Jimmy Dore and TYT. They should be exposed. But just because of that doesn't mean my critical thinking stops, because I like the information that's being presented to me. I'm going to be skeptical like I would information that I disagree with, right? He says he can see the TYT video in his glasses. This is perhaps a minor detail, but I'm not going to just agree with that, because I don't know about you guys. I zoomed in here and have a high quality mode set on this. I don't know what we're looking at. The best thing I could say from the quality of this video is either we're looking at the reflection of a window or we're looking at a computer screen. The left side of his glasses looks more like a computer screen, but it's not enough detail to be sure. So I don't know what's in his glasses, so I'm not going to repeat that point that he makes several times in this video. However, I think it's very clear he makes reaction videos to TYT, and you can hear what he's saying about the actual videos. So this is just a minor detail, which potentially actual justice warriors may be using to sensationalize, or I don't know if it's an appropriate word, but he's using it to what would maximize the views on this video and the reaction is the more evidence that he can present that slam dunk, right? So, being able to say, and you can see it on the glasses, like, people will have an emotional reaction to that. Like, if you remove that from the video has less, not that it's not going to still be well received, but this is like adding sort of icing on the cake, shall we say. Is it accurate? I don't know.
To say that one. And specifically, don't want their body touched by strange, random men.
Of which, in this situation, in this circumstance, there is no risk. You're okay.
There's no risk and no crime. There's almost no situation. By the way, there's nothing to de-escalate. Nothing's happened. They come in, they escalate.
That's right.
The cops came in. You're supposed to be the de-escalator. You came in and escalated the situation.
Almost no situation.
So just to give you, this is a good example of the kind of apologia that you get from actual justice warrior. And this is the reason why American media is so toxic, because everywhere you look, it's just garbage. Actual justice warrior would not really probably ever make a video highlighting police brutality. I'm sure there's some exceptions here and there, but generally speaking, that's not something he's interested in. He would rather spend a lot of time every time there's police brutality or reports of it, downplaying it. Oh, it's not really police brutality, or somehow justifying it. So his audience would be misinformed about the actual problems regarding police brutality. But in contrast, the people watching TYT also are misinformed. And that's the thing about American media. Everyone lives in this sort of alternate reality. No one is living in actual reality. Actual justice warrior takes parts of reality that suit his narrative and his business that he's running, this partisan media business that he runs, right? TYT takes parts of reality that, support the narrative that they want to promote based on their business model, right? So they will over-report on police brutality. They will over-attribute police brutality to being a race issue, as opposed to, police brutality is just a problem. If everyone looked the same, we'd still have police brutality, right? But you're not going to get that message from watching TYT, right? Watching Actual Justice Warrior, you wouldn't get the message of what's happening with police brutality. In your mind, police brutality is just a made-up thing by the left, right? So watching Actual Justice Warrior, police brutality not really a thing. It's just the left-wing thing. And then every time you hear about a news story based on watching Actual Justice Warrior, you just, it's probably nonsense. It's just the left doing it, right? So you're misinformed about an actual problem, right? But the way that Actual Justice Warrior is able to misinform people is by left-wing media misinforming their audience by over-reporting on certain things, which gives Actual Justice Warrior ammunition to go after them and paint this picture of like, oh, it's all nonsense, right? Not just that this story is being reported on, the general narrative about racist cops and police brutality is nonsense. Now, Actual Justice Warrior is not, in my view, one of the worst. So I think I've actually heard him breaking with that and perhaps pointing out, I think a few times he's pointed out where police, I'm pretty sure he's pointed out where police were brutal. So he's not on an extreme level where he would never point that out. Like, for example, Brian Tyler Cohen is never going to call out the Democrats, right? This guy's hardcore access journalist, Democrat propagandist. Actual Justice Warrior is not as hardcore in, like, this is my message all the time. He's at least willing to occasionally go against that. Props to him for doing that, but it is what it is.
Escalated the situation, which makes no sense. Amen.
His bloodthirsty, the cops are coming to get you, whole shtick. And I have to give credit, of all the Young Turks hosts, the only person who stood up was Ben Mankiewicz. If you listen to Ben Mankiewicz's commentary, and by the way, I'm going to link the full videos in the description from the Young Turks, because they've taken down none of these videos. All they did was inspire Gavin Long to commit a terrorist attack. They copyright claimed them on Gavin Long's channel, but Ben Mankiewicz deserves none of the smoke. He is reasoned. He talks about what you should do in this scenario. And by the way, don't think I didn't notice that John Idarola is right there as Jimmy Dore's ranting. We don't hide the ball. We're not ambiguous about violence. Wait till I show you John's cowardly reaction. Wait till you see the smug John Idarola, who's looking into the camera like, how could I even be expected to address this, react to Jimmy Dore with no condemnation, with nothing.
And that's the kind of city you want to run, where the cops cuff people where they already on camera admitted there isn't a crime. She doesn't have to give her name. So they're illegally, and then you're defending that. They're illegally doing that. So again, this is the culture of America.
That day.
To the Jimmy Dore stands, Jimmy Dore in this video is doing exactly what he does now. Sensationalism, right? Over-reporting on certain things, just talking out of his ass on certain things, right? The guy's a bullshitter. He's a fraud. That's what he's doing in this video. That's what he does now. Don't play with me. But I want you to see this right now. This is actually one of the cops that got shot. I think Actual Justice Warrior is making a strong case that this guy's injuries, and apparently he died last year, is a direct result of content, at least like what you're getting at TYT. I shouldn't just say content like, right? Because the guy, and that's the whole thing he's pointing out, he's literally watching TYT doing their thing, right? So, although we can't go into the mind of a guy that's dead in terms of how much influence TYT had on it, I think it's disingenuous to suggest that TYT is not partially to blame for those officers being killed. And look at this guy. This is one of them who survived, but is now dead.
Show me yes. Pull forward, chin.
And I'm going to guess that this footage was never shown by TYT. They reported on this stuff, right? But I'm guessing they didn't want to show this to their audience. The idea of showing the cop as the victim, right? On TYT? Nah, son. Nope. Not interested. And I can guarantee you a good amount of people who watch TYT watching this video would be mocking this cop right now, calling him a pig and saying he deserves it. Now, a dishonest right-wing person would pretend like that's just the general left-wing stance. It's not. But the kind of content that TYT puts out is going to attract a certain group of people. This is going to be one of the groups that they attract. The kind of heartless people that would watch this video. Now, I don't know this cop's life or whatever, and I don't remember the exact details of the story, but presumably he was just an innocent victim that got ambushed by this lunatic that's been watching TYT, inspired by TYT, right? So, someone who's human and has a heart, even if you recognize police brutality and racism or whatever it is, you'd have to put that aside in this moment and recognize the humanity of, like, look what happened to this guy, right? And if you really want to play games, there's a lot of people who have had a lot of pain and suffering. So you might argue, why should you care about this guy versus other people who are being harmed? But my thing is, just be human, right? Be human and recognize. Imagine if this was you or a family member, your brother, your son. But a small fraction of the TYT audience would say, my son would never be a pig, and if he if he does deserve to be, if he does be a pig, and that happens to him, well, he made his bed. We got some disgusting people in this country. It's not a left-wing thing. It's an American thing. Small fraction of the population, to be clear, but these kind of people, this is the exact type of content they would be watching. Tim Pool and TYT.
That I'm talking about, who died later, was fighting for his life. That was Baton Rouge Sheriff's Deputy Nick Toulier.
Mirror, Nick. Follow the mirror. There's the voice.
Now, of course, again, because it's not a left-wing, right-wing thing, it's an American thing. The same audience that would watch this video on a right-wing channel and be like, oh, this is so sad, and this poor guy, and it was savage, that's savage, blah, 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 right? If this was a black guy who actually was brutalized by the cop, and the cop actually was racist, right? It's not one of those race-baiting stories, a legit story, right? And this is the guy, those same people would have no compassion for him. They wouldn't want, let's not talk about it, let's not look at it, or, you know, he should have complied, or something, right? American savagery is not an ideological thing, right? It's a cultural thing. So whether you're left-wing or right-wing, super partisans that are super extreme, whatever the word, I don't know the word I'm looking for, they're savages, right? There are left-wing or far-left people that are savages. There's far-right people that are savages, right? And in both cases, if the person that has this kind of suffering is inconvenient to their narrative, right? No compassion. If it's convenient to the narrative, then there's compassion, but I would argue that it's a fake compassion, right? Just like the whole, oh, the kids, we gotta worry about the kids. Like, yeah, bullshit.
Direct calls for violence. Maybe you'd have a point. But here's a call for violence from a Young Turks video from June of this year.
Absolutely, and don't be afraid to get involved. Like Benny said, putting yourself in between in the situation. I know we're not supposed to, support violence, but hey, sometimes it's like punching a Nazi. You just gotta get in there and, make it.
This is damning. She says, I know we're not supposed to support violence, but. So that means she's admitting that she's supporting violence, right? I know we're not supposed to support violence, but what do you think comes next? Punch a Nazi, she says.
And make it happen.
That's 1 month ago on a story, which, by the way, was about somebody destroying a cardboard pride display inside a Target store. This woman concludes it with, well, I know you're not supposed to call for violence on the internet, but sometimes you got to get in there and punch a Nazi. And then she smiles, like it's funny. Like the Young Turks haven't directly inspired violence in the past. And by the way, it's not just Gavin Long. It's not just this story. If you don't think I have more information on this, you're crazy. But this is what they do a month before, within the same month of John smugly saying the hosts are totally not ambiguous about this. Again, we have other stories from the Young Turks of people threatening to smack the crap out of people.
I've had it and I'm done. And if I see Will Kane, I'll slap the out of him and show him what a large black man with superhuman strength can do.
Not too long ago, the Young Turks had this Asian woman talking about how she wants to beat up Matt Walsh. She wants to fight Matt Walsh. Why? Because Matt Walsh has political opinions that she disagrees with.
I also know women who could beat the crap out of him physically. Like, he thinks he's this. Women don't understand violence. Oh, let's do this, Matt.
Okay, but just
let's freaking do this. I never played football, and I have no interest in football.
He literally winks. Damning evidence. Damn. Down goes Fraser! I'm looking at you, Cenk.
It's like, hey, maybe we get to do something straight.
I never played football, and I have no interest in football, and I don't care about football, but I care about punching Matt Walsh in the face in a sanctioned way.
Fair, sanctioned way.
But it's funny because earlier on in this segment, you would hear Brett Ehrlich say, oh, well, people don't watch each other's shows, so they don't really know what they're saying.
So ridiculous. So I watched a lot of this. I don't really watch Tim cast, and there's a real conversation to actually be had where Tim is talking about how Emma doesn't watch his.
I want to talk about this. I notice a lot of these left-wing channels are talking about channels that they don't really watch. Ironically, I watch a lot of the right-wing channels that I talk about, but my own subscribers say that that's not the case. But trust me, I watch a ton of like Ben Shapiro, Steven Crowder. I watch all these guys, which is why you won't see me doing the things that you see a lot of these left-wing guys doing. Like, for example, The Vanguard. I'm actually a fan of their content generally, not always for sure. But they made some silly comments in the past, and they're still saying it even now, about Tim Pool shutting down one of his shows on one of his many channels. So this is one of the biggest channels in right-wing media. Of course, he pretends not to be right-wing, blah, 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 whatever. He's one of the biggest channels in right-wing media right now. He gets a ton of views. And you're in the business of critiquing, political politics, and you talk about these different, right-wing media folks, and you don't even know the basics about Tim Pool, enough to know at least what his channel consists of, that he has multiple channels, and one does this, one does that, right? But they're still, even now, talking about, he said he was going to end his channel, and it's still up. Now, Tim Pool, I'm sure, was being dishonest, trying to pretend like he's ending his channel just for views and clicks. But it's very clear to anyone that even knows remotely what Tim Pool does, what he meant. But a lot of these guys, they, just absolutely clueless. So sometimes they'll be talking about something in their bubble, like, for example, the Jacob Blake story. And, they were very wrong on that story. So right-wing media obviously jumped on that to expose them. And they had all this evidence showing how the rhetoric that was pushing out was inaccurate. But a lot of these guys potentially weren't even aware. Because they're just in their little bubbles. They put out a video, they're getting clicks and engagement, and then they go on Twitter and they back and forth and whatever. They don't care to know the alternate side of what they're talking about, to investigate and to actually be truthful about what they're talking about. Nah, you're making your money, you put a story out that's getting your clicks, good to go, right? That's American journalism.
Well, here's the thing, Brett, buddy pal. I'd watch the Young Turks. I know the things that you're saying. I know that when John Iadarola smugly looks into the camera and says the Young Turks is full of people who unambiguously condemn violence, that is false. That's a lie. You have calls to violence. Again, I didn't even have to go beyond this month that I'm shooting this video in to prove this in your videos all the time. You always play fast and loose with it, and when something does happen, when something does pop off, you either don't cover it or you blame your political opponents. So let's be clear. Gavin Long was directly inspired by the crappy, terrible...
They don't always play fast and loose with it, but that's kind of me nitpicking. But again, I prefer to be accurate. No one's perfect, but I prefer to be as accurate as possible. I'm not going to ding him for that. I mean, he's not perfect either, right? And he's really getting into it or whatever, but still, that's inaccurate.
So moved by the fact that you guys donated to Christian Cito's GoFundMe and you guys donated it to the Give Send Go that we set up in order to replace that young man's teeth, because I know that you guys can do good if you're focused in the right direction, and all of the credit goes to you for that. You guys stepped up in that. But also, I want to run a channel. I want to operate a kind of news outlet, whatever the hell I'm doing, commentary system that inspires people to do things like that and doesn't just gin up hysteria and direct people's rage at this weird looking person or whatever. So that's something that I want to focus and redirect on, and that's something that I'm concerned about while making my videos, and I've actually adjusted my content over time to align with those concerns. What bothers...
Wow. I mean, you're saying this 43 minutes into your video, but I like what you're saying there. What you actually do is another story.
In his debate with Destiny recently, even though this exact rhetoric is not true, it's not based in reality, something like 9 unarmed black people are killed by the police every single goes about places where Cenk is right, places where Anna Kasparian is right. I do think there is a path forward for some of these people to just come up and step up and do the right thing and at least acknowledge that this happened. I mean, again, probably the best conversation I've ever had on the internet.com for 4 hours on criminal justice topics was missed completely out of hand from the jump, but it happened. Anna Kasparian, who I've made videos going after for years, is starting to come around on some issues, and it's happening. There is hope. They can do it. And I do think if anybody will do it, if anybody will address it, it will be Anna Kasparian. That's where I'm putting my money on. That's what I want to say. Anyway, that's all I really have for you guys today. Thank you so much for watching.
I would like to see the same level of effort and concern exposing the dishonest actors in right-wing media. But of course, Actual Justice Warrior is just typical American media, tribalist, pandering to his audience. He's willing to do this kind of work here because obviously it's exposing his political opponents. Just like Brian Tyler Cohen does great work exposing the Republicans and the right, but he's real silent when it comes to exposing the Democrats and the left. They all play this game, and it's pretty sad and it's toxic for the country in my view. Anyway, this is the Debate Me channel. Debate me in the comment section below. Click on the like button, subscribe, smash that bell. Be well.